Have you ever wondered why you've been stuck in the same place with your health and fitness goals, despite all of the effort that you feel like you're putting in? Maybe you've been going to the gym for years and it feels as though you're putting in all of this work, but you just don't really have the results or the body to show for it. Or maybe you're just getting into your fitness journey, you're at the very start and you just don't really know what to do. Should you cut first? Should you bulk first? Do you need to maintain? It can be a bit of a minefield trying to figure all of this stuff out. And that's why in this video, I'm going to break down the #1 reason why most people are not seeing good results on their fitness journey and why they never achieve their dream body and how you can start fixing that today. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'm going to share with you something I've made that is completely free, that is going to get you on the road working towards being your best ever this year. First, I just want to start by addressing a few of the really common mistakes that I see a lot of people make when they're on their fitness journey. The first one, and probably the most important one, is that they just try to do everything at once without any real plan. They want to get leaner and have abs, but they also want to get stronger, build muscle, have a giant booty, or maybe they just think they can lean gain their way to a physique like they've seen someone say online. Or maybe they want to build all this muscle, but they also want to train for a marathon and do a high rocks at the same time. Now, it's great to have all of these different goals, but when we try to do everything at once, we just end up muddying the waters. We end up with no clear plan, not getting very far, spinning our wheels, and then feeling really demotivated as a result. Without any specific milestones or goals to set along the way, it's really easy to get complacent and then just not really put that much effort in. This is especially true when it comes to building muscle and losing fat. The reality is you cannot pursue both of these goals with a high degree of success, at least not with taking years to do it. And I know main gaining is all the rage these days, but I think all you have to do is look at, competitive bodybuilders and see how they do things, and you will see that not one of them has ever done a main gaining phase. And these are the people who know how to build muscle and lose fat better than anybody else in the world. And you should probably take a leaf out of their book. Even if you don't want to compete, it's worth taking inspiration from what they do. They're very specific about when they're growing and they're very specific about when they're dieting. In order to lose fat, you have to be in a calorie deficit. And if you want to optimize for muscle growth, you probably should be in a caloric surplus. Unless you're a complete beginner coming back from an injury or you're taking performance enhancing drugs. If you don't fall under any of these categories, trying to build muscle and lose fat at the same time is just going to lead you not making a whole lot of progress and feeling a little bit deflated by that. If you don't fall into any of these categories, trying to chase muscle gain and fat loss at the same time is probably going to lead you to looking pretty similar for quite a while, which isn't very exciting or motivating. Which brings me onto my next mistake that I see people make, and that is that they just spend way too long in a calorie deficit trying to diet and trying to get smaller, and they never commit themselves to proper building phases. Now, I get it, especially for the girlies watching this, gaining weight can be scary, I understand that, but if you actually want to build a big pair of glutes, some giant quads, a dense back, some boulder shoulders, you are going to have to be okay with saying goodbye to the shreds and the abs for a while. You need to spend time fueling yourself properly, eating in a surplus, and getting fucking strong. Doing this is going to actually allow you to build the physique and the shape that you want, and as much as I hate the word, that's what's going to let you look toned. Constantly being in a deficit is not only boring as fuck, but it's so restrictive, and you run the risk of things happening like muscle loss, maybe running into issues such as hormonal downregulation or metabolic downregulation, which basically means your body adapts to constantly being fed lower calories, meaning over time you are going to have to keep pushing harder and harder and harder to continue getting leaner. And the final mistake that I see a lot of people make is they don't focus enough on lifestyle factors like sleep and stress management. If these are out of whack, that is massively going to impact your ability to stay in a calorie deficit, to lose body fat, and to build muscle and grow. Taking the time to work in these first, potentially in a state of caloric maintenance, might be a better idea rather than going straight into a deficit or a surplus. And this is exactly why we need to be leaning into the power of utilizing specific phases within our fitness journey. In general, we can break these phases up into a calorie deficit or fat loss, a calorie surplus or muscle gain, or calorie maintenance. And each of these phases comes with its own actions, behaviors, goals, and outcomes. Think of your fitness journey like building a house. You need to lay the foundation of maintenance, then you need to build a structure, which is muscle gain, and then you can polish off the details, which is your fat loss phases. Skipping any phases is going to leave you with an incomplete house, and it's going to leave you with an incomplete physique as well. Breaking your journey up into these specific phases allows you to have actionable targets and outcomes for each phase, and to have very clear, defined endpoints to work towards, rather than just having this big open-ended goal of get fit or get in shape. This is why all of my clients that I work with work on timelines, where we sit down and we look at their goals goal date, whenever that is in the future, and then we work backwards and we map out all of the different phases that we need to go through to get them to that end goal. This might look like starting with a priming phase, where we set a foundation of good habits, aim to lose a little bit of fat, and get them set up for a nice productive building phase, within which we will be in a calorie surplus, focusing on building muscle. And then after that, we might go into a more extended fat loss phase with the goal of getting them into the best shape of their life. Or they might start straight into a growing phase, followed by a deficit, and then a period of time at maintenance, where we're really focusing on just ingraining all of those habits and behaviors that they have learned so that they can maintain their results in the long run. This goes whether someone wants to do a bodybuilding show, a photo shoot, or just get into the best shape of their life for a wedding or a holiday, or just because they want to. By doing this, a client is able to stay focused within each phase, and they know exactly what they need to be doing and when, and what the outcomes for each of those phases should look like. I've always found that humans work best with deadlines. I mean, how often have you left an assignment until the very last minute and then managed to do it all in one day right before the cutoff time? It's pretty common. And by having these deadlines in place, we can keep the focus, motivation, and discipline high throughout most of the journey. So how do we start with planning out these specific phases? The process is actually pretty simple. First, we need to start by assessing your current state. Are you lean enough to go into a growing phase? Do you maybe need to diet first? Maybe you need to spend some time at maintenance and actually solidifying good, consistent nutritional practices, better sleep, better stress management, better training consistency. You have to meet yourself where you are at, and you have to have the self-awareness of how the next few months will go depending on which of these phases you choose to start with. When it comes to knowing should you diet first or should you go into a gaining phase first, this is the question I like to ask. Given your current body composition, do you think you would feel comfortable gaining weight for the next 6 months? If you feel like you would be ready to diet in 2 months, then you probably should start with a diet first to get your body composition to a point and a nice lean set point, which is going to allow for a good runway to progress through a surplus. You don't want to be cutting that short because you've started to feel a little bit too fluffy. To be honest, the majority of people who come to me, even if they want to go into a growing phase, I will usually suggest that we start with a diet. It might only be 4 to 6 weeks, but it just gives me a chance to make sure their training is locked in and consistent, make sure their nutrition is good, and just get their body prepared to put on muscle. After that, we want to pick a realistic endpoint. Think of the next 6 to 12 months and what you want to achieve. If you want to be in the shape of your life in 12 months time, you might want to do a 16-week diet before that to get yourself nice and lean. That means before the diet, we would maybe want to spend 20 to 24 weeks in a growing phase so that we can put on muscle, build your food up, and get your body ready for a productive diet. And to set us up for the growing phase, we might want to start with an initial priming fat loss phase. I have clients who want to compete in 2026 and beyond, and they already have their full timelines mapped out between now and their show so that we know everything we need to do in order to get them to that end point at their very best. You need to think long-term with your goals, and you also need to be patient. You're probably not going to achieve your dream body overnight, and instead you need to break that journey up into phases, and for each phase set very specific, measurable, and actionable targets and outcomes. Also understand that you might have to be adaptive. Just because you set a phase to last 20 weeks, it might end up taking less time, it might end up taking more time, but at least having some sort of an idea is going to be better than going in completely blind. If you have no idea where to start when it comes to things like setting your calories, this is the website that I use to calculate the TDEE for all of my clients when they start with me. And this is essentially going to give me their predicted maintenance calories. Enter all your details into this, figure out what your maintenance calories are. If you wanted to go into a deficit, you might want to start with a 300 calorie deficit. If you wanted to go into a growing phase, you might want to start with a 100 to 150 calorie surplus, and then you would just adjust from there based on how your body is responding and based on your rate of loss or your rate of gain. For example, if you're in a calorie deficit, I would usually advise trying to lose anywhere between 0.5 to 1.5% of your body weight per week, and if you're in a surplus, aiming to gain between 1 to 1.5% of your body weight per week. By aiming for these sorts of targets, you're going to know when you need to make changes to the plan. Obviously, there is a lot more that goes into building your dream body, and it's very hard to condense all of that into one short video, but I truly believe that actually being intentional and mapping out the specific phases of that journey is going to make a massive difference, rather than just going into everything blind and hoping for the best and trying to do everything all at once. Because as I hope you appreciate by now, that usually isn't going to work out. If you've been spinning your wheels up until now, the chances are you just haven't sat down and actually created a timeline for yourself to follow with all of these various phases included in it. And that is why I have created our Excellence Coaching free timeline creation tool, which is going to help you figure out exactly what phase you should be in and how to structure your timeline to get you towards your end goal. It is super quick, super easy, and it is completely free, no obligations, like I said. So if you want access to that, you can click on the very first link in the description of this video. Remember, you can achieve amazing fucking results on your fitness journey with the right plan in place. So if you found this video helpful, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and maybe share it with a friend because it might help them too.